Welcome back to the Eye of Jupiter Live. I'm your host, Tom Franklin, and today we have on the wonderful Robert Prevo from the MONSTROUS podcast. He's a great guy. We're just going to have a conversation. It's always good to chat with Robert. He's got a critical mind. He's a critical thinker, and but he really enjoys what we talk about. So, of course, he was so grateful to accept my request if he would come on, and he's on today with us. So we're going to have a lot of fun. If you keep finding yourself coming back to the iTuber podcast, please do me a favor and consider liking, subscribing. Hopefully, I earned that today. You can also go over on Rumble, help me out. We're at 61. I need to get to 100 before anything starts happening over there. You can also download from any of your favorite podcasting MP3 sites. You can also go ahead and down in the link below, get yourself a nice T-shirt. I got some new ones up. There's some mugs over there. There's a hat. Go ahead and check that out, guys. And just a friendly reminder, also, super chats are open and super stickers and all that stuff. You guys, if you want to support the show and, allow me to keep coming into your headspace, that would be much appreciated. So with all that out of the way, let's welcome to the Eye of Jupiter podcast, one Mr. Robert Prevo.
Hey, Tom. How's it going, buddy?
It's going good, man. How are you today?
Doing great. You reminded me, as soon as you mentioned Rumble, you reminded me that I need to update my Rumble over there. I've got episodes on YouTube that I don't have on Rumble, so I need to add those in.
It's hard, man, because so what I do is when I upload my stuff, I have to first take it, grab a section that, was interesting, that fits to like the way I want to present it, put it on the front, get a nice little thing that I get from an AI, put it on the front, do that, upload it all, go to ChatGPT, get all my stuff, fix it and reword it the way I want it. Mm-hmm. Then I finally get all that done. It's uploaded, and then you have to go to Rumble, and also I have to go to Spreaker. It's people don't realize how much work it is behind the scenes. Just getting guests, seeking out guests, and hopefully getting them on the show.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of work that's behind the scenes whenever you're trying to locate eyewitnesses that want to, that actually want to come on and they want to talk about what they've experienced. That's one of the hardest things right there. And then trying to schedule it in, get them to where they're on the same platform that you're on with StreamYard and stuff like that, to where you can schedule it in, talk about it, and then you can get together, you can edit everything afterwards and, add in your graphics, your sounds, all the stuff, get it edited, put it together the way you want it, and then put it on a platform somewhere. So,
yeah. People don't they think, once you're, on YouTube and you get monetized that you make money. You really don't. I get lucky if I make $50 a month, which is, not much, but it's the way it is. And, we're struggling to make sure that we just keep doing what we're doing. It's more of a labor of love than it is anything else.
Exactly. Yeah, we do this because that's what we want to do. We want to get the information out there because we know that you guys enjoy it. We enjoy putting it out there. We enjoy the podcast just as much as you guys do. I watch Eye of Jupiter. I watch, everybody else who, that's putting out stuff. I love Tom's stuff as much as everybody else does, so.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Do me a favor. So since we're talking about the show, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and tell everybody about yourself and why you do what you do, and tell them a little bit about your show, man.
Absolutely. Okay, so as you know, I'm Robert Prevo. I've been involved in. I got all fancy with it. Prevo. Who cares? Anyway, So anyway, I've been involved with cryptozoology and the paranormal pretty much my entire life, especially with the paranormal. I'm one of those kids who grew up seeing ghost experience and stuff. One of the kids who was afraid of the dark because I knew that there was monsters in there, and. I'm a Gen Xer. I grew up with In Search Of and those kinds of shows where we all, were talking about the Loch Ness Monster. We were talking about Patty and stuff like that. And we always thought it was a world away, but we didn't realize that all these things were happening in our own backyard and that we could actually go look for them. Excuse me. And so in the 80s, whenever I was a teenager, is whenever I spent a lot of time in the woods as a teenager. And that's where I really got to where I understood and got in touch with nature and, started the whole investigating, researching thing. I was big into religions from all around the world, studied the occult,
Yep.
studied everything I could get my hands on, as far as monsters and, anything, anything from movie monsters on. So, as I became an adult, and everything, I really got involved in cryptozoology and the paranormal, and it just kind of went from there. I used to be a admin with cryptozoology.com. They're defunct now. The page is no longer there, but I used to be an admin on there and a writer on there, so I wrote a lot of articles for them. And so I went ahead and I started working on doing research in my area with Black Panthers because, authorities will tell you there's no Black Panthers in North America. Well, anybody who spends any time in the forest knows that there's Black Panthers in North America. Just like they'll tell you there's no mountain lions in our area, there's no black bears in our area. I'm in Arkansas, by the way. And we know for a fact that, there are. And so anyway, that's the part of cryptozoology. Cryptozoology at its heart is biological. We're looking for animals, biological animals that either used to exist and are believed to be extinct, or we're looking for animals that were never proven to actually exist.
Okay.
So I've evolved on from that. As you can see down there, it says Robert the Animalogist. Well, animalogy is something I kind of came up with, which is a combination of the paranormal,
Hmm.
cryptozoology, ufology. It basically what it is it takes away, it strips away all the barriers, and it makes it so that if you're an investigator or a researcher, you feel free to investigate any of those things that you want to investigate and put it under one umbrella.
Right.
Now I
It's very
do have a
interesting. You're
book
talking
out.
about. You're talking about. I'm sorry, Robert. You're talking
No,
about.
no.
We'll get to your book, buddy. I promise. We're talking about these cryptids, but and like animalologists. They just did the dire wolf thing. That's wild, and it's a little bit scary, man. I want to know what's your thoughts on that, just like real quick.
Well, I'm pretty good friends with Ryan Tremblay, and we were talking about that the other day. And he's got a friend who refers to the dire wolf as the liar wolf, the one that they just came out with. So and there's a good reason behind that because these aren't true dire wolves that they've come out with. When you look at the way that they manipulated the genetics, they didn't actually use genetics from a dire wolf. What they did is they took a gray wolf and they altered the genetics in such a way through using CRISPR so that it would fit as close as they could possibly get from what they understand with the genetics that they have. So the genetics that they have in mapping the dire wolf is not complete. It's kind of like what
Okay,
we saw in Jurassic Park. Okay, so it's
yeah,
not
I've
it's
heard of
not
CRISPR.
yeah, so it's not complete. So if you're looking at 10,000-year-old a genetic strain, it's going to be in pieces. So they got it as
Right.
close as they could. And then what they did is they took a gray wolf and then they took and they matched up the genetics so that this embryo or these embryos would come out appearing to be just like a dire wolf. Now, as close as they can get. Now, you have to remember these are cubs. These are cubs still, so we still don't know if they'll even reach maturity.
Yeah.
We kind of hope they
Well,
will.
Dolly, like as far as I know, Dolly the sheep back, and I think that was the late '80s, early '90s. Dolly or mid '90s,
Mhm.
like that. She didn't make it very long, as far as I remember.
What was interesting about Dolly being a clone,
Oh,
what they
that's
did is they cloned a sheep of a certain age. So whenever they cloned that sheep, the embryo already started out at that age. So it's like if I cloned somebody who was 35 years old, that embryo would start out at that mark of 35
oh,
years old. Yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of like that the Robin Williams movie where you just like he kind of but not really. No, I'm sorry, you were about to talk about your book. Please tell me about your book. We got the link right
Oh
here,
no,
guys.
no, it's okay.
No,
Yeah,
no,
so
it's
I've got Monstrous Arkansas: The Field Guide to Unknown and Mysterious Beings in the Natural State. And yeah, it's kind of a fun little book. It's just the idea was to come out with a field guide for the monsters that were in Arkansas. I had seen a whole lot of stuff at the time. You know, Washington gets all the publicity whenever it comes to Bigfoot, and then you see with the Appalachians, and you know, I felt kind of like the Ozarks was missing out. So I thought, well, let's kick out a book for Arkansas. So we did that, had a lot of fun with it. I did about half the artwork in it, and a friend of
okay.
mine, Dale Chitty, did the other half of the artwork, and it was a labor of love. So the idea was to come up with a book that researchers and investigators could keep in their backpack when they're actually in the field and use it as a reference guide.
Fantastic, dude. And this is, you can find this on your website, or where can you find this?
You can go directly to Amazon.com and you can find it.
There you go. Just go ahead and type that in, guys, and hook them up. Yeah, that's very interesting. The CRISPR technology. So, like, if this technology, which I think is known for about 15 years, if I'm not mistaken, it's about
Mm-hmm.
that old. What is your take on if they can take that and they can make a dire wolf? How far are they away from making something like a dogman? You know what I mean? Like, if they can do that, then why can't they do that as well?
Okay, so here's the problem. We didn't actually make a dire wolf. First of all,
Oh,
we made an altered gray wolf. So we have to keep that in mind.
okay,
So what you're talking about is recombinant DNA. So we do a little bit of that with we kind of do it for fun with like tropical fish, where we'll take a certain type of tropical fish and we might take the DNA for bioluminescence out of jellyfish and we'll add it to them and you end up with these glow in the dark fish. Um, so you got kind of that, but whenever you start messing with trying to alter, you know, and add in a Homo sapien mixed with a canid, you're going to end up with a mess. 99.9% of the time, it's not even going to start to work. I mean, it has to take, first of all, you have to be able to have a junction in that DNA strand and
okay.
for that to actually take. So you're not going to jump that much evolutionary period
Definitely
without,
understand.
yeah. Everybody kind of thinks, well, you can take this and you can make monsters of any kind that you want. It's kind of like taking apart your GI Joes and putting them back together, and well, this one's got this head and this one's got this arm, and no, it's not quite that much fun. There's a
So
lot of work.
That's your take on Dogman. A Dogman is somewhere between a primate and because of the name, or is that your actual take on it? Because the way I'm kind of seeing it is, it's more like a maybe a mutation of somewhere's in the canids. You know what I mean? Like it's a canid that's able to stand up, whatever that means. But you know what I mean? I don't think it's kind of a mix. I just think it's what it's called colloquially. Colloquially.
Me personally, from what I've been studying and from what I've been working on, my hypothesis is that Dogman is not a canid at all. I think it's a
Okay.
primate.
You think it's a primate?
I do.
Okay.
I
Okay.
do.
Could you expound upon that and how you came to
Yes,
this reasoning?
I'd absolutely love to. Um, I kind of have to back up because it actually starts with the illuminated eyes that we see, and it actually starts with Sasquatch. So let me back off of Dogman and go to Sasquatch because this has occurred with Sasquatch much longer in investigations than it has with Dogman. So whenever we look at research and investigations that have to do with Sasquatch, we've noticed that they a lot of times are reported to have illuminated eyes. Usually they're red illuminated eyes, and it's not like eye shine. There's something in the back of a lot of animals' eyes that's called the tapetum lucidum, and it's like a concave mirror. And what it does is it reflects that light back into the eyes, back into the cones and the rods, and it magnifies that light. That's why whenever you look at a wolf or you look at a dog or a cat or anything with eye shine or with a flashlight, you're going to see that eye shine. Now, we are seeing that with Sasquatch. I think Tom will be right back. I think he's got an issue right there. But we're seeing self-illuminated eyes with Sasquatch, and we're not sure what's going on with that. There's a lot of talk about this being something a little bit more paranormal, but I tend to look at things at a much more biological way. So what could possibly be causing that? Because we know that they have excellent night vision. They can see in the dark like we can see in the daytime. They're able to also see IR light on IR cameras from game cameras. We know this because they're able to avoid our game cameras, and we have seen them at distance peeking around trees at game cameras. So they're actually able to see the IR light, and they understand the function of that light. There's also talk about Sasquatch being subterranean or partially subterranean. That they use caves or go into holes in the ground, to escape bad weather, or maybe get away from the harsh winter weather, or maybe even the harsh summer weather. So there's Tom coming back. So maybe it's necessary for these creatures to be able to see in almost absolute pitch black. I don't know if you've ever been in a cave before, but I've been in mammoth caves whenever they turned out all the lights, and it's absolutely black.
Yeah, I was in a cave in Indiana back in 2002. It was like a cave with the biggest mountain inside, which basically where the ceiling falls down and creates this debris. And they turned out the lights, and I was with my ex-wife, and I go, I was the scared one. I had on my I just got out of the military and was driving across country, and I was like, could you guys turn the lights back on? Because it is blacker than black, guys. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
I was afraid.
So if you're, yeah, really. So if you're a creature who is needing to travel subterraneanly through these caves, you're going to be able to see, or you're going to have to be able to, bats have echolocation, so we don't know that Bigfoot has echolocation. But if they are using these caves to travel through, they're going to need to be able to see. So if you want to be able to see in complete blackness, you need to be able to see in a different wavelength. So it would either have to be in the infrared spectrum, or it would have to be in the thermal spectrum, and possibly both. Yeah, you do need to get to Mammoth Caves.
Yes. Austin's here, everybody. Hey, Austin from the Dead Chronicles. Hi, buddy.
So the thing is, that means that these creatures, these Sasquatch, have an organ in their eyes similar to the tapetum lucidum, like other animals have, but it's a little bit different, and it's able to actually allow it to see in either the IR or thermal range that we can't see, possibly both. Wow. Which one of the side effects of that may be that self-illuminating eye, or it may be something that they use in absolute black so that they can identify one another.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting too. And maybe if it's some type of an organ up there, they can also emit that what people call being zapped, or they always say ultrasound or whatever it
is. That's always a possibility,
right? So it's like another organ where for them, they're immune to it because they're used to projecting it, through evolutionary processes, and it bounces off one of them, kind of like a bat, and comes back and hits the organ, and they know that you're there. But it's a good chance.
See, and a lot of people will be like, "Oh, well, that's kind of far-fetched." Well, it's really not that far-fetched. Human beings couldn't even see the color blue or register the color blue until somewhere in the medieval period. We had green, we had red, we had other colors, and purple actually doesn't exist. Yeah. What our brain sees as purple is actually or what we describe as purple is actually where our brain takes blue and red and mixes the two, because purple does not actually exist as a wavelength color.
Hmm. That I'm gonna have to look into, because I mean, as a painter, I take my alizarin crimson and I mix my Prussian blue and I put them together and I get my nice purple. But I do know for a long time it didn't exist, or like there was also like certain tribes in certain areas of the world who didn't see yellow. It was only just like, or orange. It was just certain colors of green. They would just say, oh, it's just a light green or whatever it is. But that purple truly doesn't exist. That's interesting, because if we're perceiving it as purple and perception is our reality, then I would, at least on a philosophically speaking, would maybe kind of bump up against you on that one a little bit.
No, that's fine. We should
Oh,
always
I'm not.
we should always do that. It should always be a conversation. There should never be, you know how I am about that. I don't think we should ever just, well, Robert said so, or Tom said so, so that's the way it is. We should always discuss these things.
Yeah, which is the, hey, we got Tim from the Ohio Bigfoot Researchers. Hi, Tim. What's it going, buddy? Yeah, I think that little statement, not to get political whatsoever, is a microcosm of what's everything that's going on nowadays. You know what I mean? It's a microcosm. You should be able to listen to someone's opinion and not drop the NAZI word. You know what I mean? In every 2 seconds to promote an idea because you disagree with it. And I think that's been lost for some reason. And I think mostly because of social media and, of course, the politicalization of certain media outlets, because they make money if you're upset. So I think that's a really cool thing to say. It's just to kind of like connect it to what's going on in the world at this particular moment. We should be open to everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So here's the connection between Dogman and Sasquatch then. So
Okay.
Dogman has also been seen with these self-illuminating eyes. So if,
Yep.
and only if, this is a biological development that has happened in Sasquatch, and Sasquatch is a primate. I'm not saying that Sasquatch is a gorilla. We're primates too. So if Sasquatch is a primate and has developed this, then it stands to reason that Dogman has to be a primate too if it has that same biological or evolutionary development. Because two separate species developing that same trait at the same time doesn't make sense.
Okay. Oh, okay. So you're saying like it's like they're like cousins of one another. Somewhere's down the branch of the evolutionary scale. That's interesting.
Theoretically. And there's a
Say
lot.
for example, you can't have an orangutan drive a forklift, but they still have opposable thumbs.
Right.
A forklift was a really good grab, Robert. You should have laughed. Too late. Oh man.
I'm just gonna let it go, Tom. I'm just gonna let it go now.
Oh man.
I actually feel like I should maybe be offended because I was a forklift driver for years.
Someone make that a shirt. Let's get the Eye of Jupiter and having an orangutan driving a forklift. I would love to see that.
It needs to have a T-shirt on that says Robert on it, by the way. So
yeah, that's interesting. Very interesting that they would both kind of develop it, and it wouldn't be on a separate path. So if one's a primate, then therefore the other would be then for also a primate. That's what you're trying to say.
Yes, and there's actually some more. There's actually some more stuff to support the idea of it being a primate. If you look at folklore, Native American folklore in America, of course, with Native American, you don't see much of anything that has to do with like these werewolf things. Now, people want to refer to skinwalkers and stuff like that. That's a whole nother subject about why skinwalkers are different than that. What we do have is a lot of what it ends up being referred to as devil monkeys. When you get
Mm,
up into Canada and you get out into the Appalachians and you get into the Ozarks, there's a lot of talk of these things that they referred to as devil monkeys later on. The original name was not devil monkeys. Each tribe had their own name. And of course, in North America, they're not going to know what a monkey is because those animals don't exist in North America. So they had a different name to them. But and if you look at the descriptions, a lot of these dogmen seem to have this big, thick mane. Well, if you look at apes, well, not apes, but monkeys, bigger monkeys, and you look at baboons,
right.
there are a lot of baboons who have these big, thick manes on their heads. While we're at it and hanging around with the baboons, have you ever seen the face of a baboon? It looks much more like a canine
True.
than it does
Interesting.
an ape, and they have huge canine teeth.
True. What about the large backsides?
Yeah, yeah,
I'm sorry, Robert, but it's been a long day, man.
yeah,
Yeah, okay, that's a very. I love that. I love that because if you
yeah.
the baboons, which they're like some they look and they actually stand up too.
Yes,
They have some
yes.
dogman like features to them.
Which is where you were leading me to, which is where I was going to lead you to, as a matter of fact, is that they are much more able to travel on all four. And when they travel on all four, they look like their front legs are longer, which is what is generally reported by dogman eyewitnesses. And
Interesting.
then they can stand up. And when they stand up, they have a chest that's much more similar to ours than it is a dog's. Now, you hear a lot of eyewitnesses talking about dogman being built like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah,
there you
dude.
go.
This dude, I'm digging this dude. I am picking up what you're putting down right now. I never thought about that. I never thought about that. I don't think anyone's brought that up. That is such an acute observation, man. I like that. That's an interesting, very interesting, dude.
I'm not done yet.
Oh, oh.
If you dig around and you start looking at the tracks of some baboons, their rear tracks are very much like a canine's track, while their hands are much more like ours. You hear a lot of reports of dogman climbing up trees very quickly or getting on the roof of a house, and terrorizing somebody. Well, an ape or a monkey is going to do that much easier than a canine is going to be able to do that.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm. And skeletal structure, like we said, is just going to be much easier to move from on four to up on two. Like we talked about the muscular cure with the chest, and it having a tail that is similar to a canid is really not that big of a stretch. So we're probably looking at something that is in the baboon family or
Mm-hmm.
very close, but is much larger. Is probably around 6 foot tall, 7 foot tall, something like that.
Do, do we have? I mean, okay. I know, for example, like the Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Wild Man, whatever you want to call them, have been seen in North America as well as in Asia, even the Yowie in Australia. Is there any instances of, say, like dogmen in other continents other than North America? Have you heard of that? If anyone
Well,
can write on the side.
yes and no. So, I mean, if you look at folklore and you go back into, stories of werewolves from around the world and everything, if we're going to dig in and maybe they weren't always, you kind of get in muddy waters whenever you get into that because you're digging into the stories of wolves and werewolves because we had a tenuous relationship as human beings with wolves. They would
Yes.
come in and they would take our sheep, our cattle, they would take our children, they would take us, and then we also had a relationship where we befriended some of them and we made them into our best friends,
Yeah.
and we've got our dogs now. So, and then we have this love-hate relationship with the idea of the werewolf. We even today it's really over romanticized, the idea of the werewolf. And we see it a lot of times whenever we talk about dog men, where things kind of get a little blown out of proportion as far as the relationship that an eyewitness might have with a dog man, or claim to have with a dog man.
Right.
So So, he's my best friend. His name is Billy, and he lives down the road. That kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So
The wolves
there's
are scary, dude. I mean, there was a story I probably heard on Rogan where the Germans were, like in a trench warfare. I think with the Russians or the French. I don't remember which ones, and they kept having these things where the wolves were coming into the trenches at night and taking out the soldiers. So they decided, okay, we're not going to like take out each other right now. We're going to like make a coalition and take out these wolves, and then we can get back to fighting. That's such a what a strange paradox, or what we are is I've been really into World War II at the moment too. I don't know why it keeps popping up on my feed, but that is a very another very astute observation, dude.
Mhm. Yeah, if you look at Finland and the Netherlands around the late 1800s, early 1900s, there was a really horrible outbreak of wolves taking children. I mean, just in front of their parents, coming up, grabbing the
Mm,
children, running off into the woods. And, some of them were never found and some of them were found in pieces. So, it's horrible, but I mean that's nature too. That's what we have to understand. And
right.
there's still a lot we don't understand about, all the way from Sasquatch to Dog Man to all these other things that we're talking about. But I think if we look at it biologically and we take each individual thing and we take it apart and we say, okay, what is the most likely thing to happen here and how do these things add up? I honestly think that Dogman is a primate. I don't think it's a dog or a canid at all.
Wow. I've also heard there's different versions of it too. There's subspecies as I can't think of paranormal Bronxville Paranormal. I can't think of his name. Alfred Santariga.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I've also heard it from B Moss, where she was saying that the one that she saw looked more like a pit bull, which would also then kind of, because that means the nose is then farther in from
Hmm.
the side view, which would also then like maybe there's just like when you have striped bass, and then you have where the line is solid, and then you go into the lake regions. You know what I mean? Like they'll have striped bass too, but the line will be broken. So it's kind
Hmm.
of like just a little slight variation when there may be isolated pocket when they're separated from the rest. So it's making a lot of sense, man. I like it.
Yeah, it's always a possibility that, we have to take into account. There can be subspecies that can occur. There are birth defects that can occur. There are things that can alter the DNA, like, maybe measles, mumps, rubella, things like that, that can actually affect primates that affect humans. If these are primates, and like we think that Sasquatch might be, then we have to be aware that all of these viruses that can affect us can most likely affect them. Vice versa. The ones that can affect them can affect us. So we have to be kind of careful with all of this in here because there's a lot more biologically at stake than we really even give it credit for.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody, look, say hello to my mom. Everyone, my mom is here. Hi, mom.
Hi, Mom.
She knows how to operate Facebook a little bit. She still makes like I'll put up a story and then she'll write on there, "Hi, sweetheart, I love you," and then she kind of messes it up still. But she's 65, so it's okay, mom. Hi. Everyone's saying hi. Look at that. Everyone's saying hi, mom. Hi, mom. There we go. Hi, Rose. I'm trying, guys. We'll see if we can talk my sister into it with my poltergeist encounter that I talked about extensively on the show, to have her on alive like this and have her point of view of it, so you guys get to hear it. Not to mention all the fascinating things she's seen throughout her life as well. So let's see if we can give her a nudge. Hi, Jenny.
Hey, Jenny.
Uh, so this is what you do. So how long you been doing your podcast, man?
Oh, Lord. Let's see. So we are right at the 1 year mark.
Okay.
Coming into the 1 year mark.
All right.
Yeah, so we're doing pretty good. I'm on episode 31 on the getting ready to record episode 31 on the podcast. So we have the podcast, then I have the field guide that is also on there. And starting either this week or next week, we're going to be adding in something a little new. We're going to be adding in monstrous mysteries. So
Okay.
we're going to start talking about things like Mel's Hole, the
Oh, I
Amity,
know that.
yeah, the Amityville hauntings, stuff like that. We're going to start talking about those and kind of picking them apart. If you've ever seen the Y Files, we're going to
No.
kind of do something similar to that, but maybe not quite so in depth. If you ever get a chance to watch the Y Files, but if you don't want something picked apart, don't watch it, because he really does a great job of picking apart and the truth behind certain things. So yeah.
So 31. So that means you do one every 2 weeks, more or less.
Yes. We started out, we were doing it one every week, and it got to be just a little hard on trying to pull in eyewitnesses and researchers and investigators. And I want you guys to have fun watching them, and I want to have fun making them. So I don't want the big headache. And quite frankly, I think we're doing just fine doing it every other week. And if we get to where we're monetized and we feel like everybody's really wanting us to hit it every week, well, I'll gladly hit it every week. We'll do something. We'll put some more effort into it. But I think we're doing
Yeah,
pretty good
dude,
right now.
go over, guys, and subscribe to his channel. Let's see. Let me go back and grab it real quick. Here it is. Go. That's the podcast on Facebook groups, and here is the YouTube channel. Go over there if you like what Robert does. Robert's a very, very, very good host, very knowledgeable, and as you can see, he's a very well-spoken person, which is normally like a bad thing to say about somebody, but and it's like a kind of a backhand remark, but it's really not when it comes to what you do. It's just and yeah, so that's awesome, dude. So like, it is true, dude. Like, me, there's times where I'll put out a feeler. I'll go, hey, is anybody out there? And sometimes, I recently put out one. I try to book about a month to a month and a half advance. That way I
Right.
save some space if somebody has something they really need to urgently say and come on. Sometimes I'll move people, very rarely though. And I was doing 3 for a minute there because I was doing the switch from the Wednesday live to a Friday live. That was too much. But 2 a week, it's still hard to find some
Hmm.
people sometimes, but like I think the more you do it, the more people will reach out to you if they can connect with you.
Right.
It's not just about the story. It's not just about the guest or the host. It's about the feeling of being in the room with them at the
Yes.
same time. I mean, that's my opinion, and I think you're very good at that. So,
Well, thank you. I appreciate
no,
that. I know that you are. You've been doing this for a while. You're doing great.
oh, Rob, let's not butter each other's bread yet. But so, are you going to do an anniversary show?
I believe we probably will. We probably
Yeah,
will. I
you're gonna
don't see why.
do a live, and have everyone on there and say hi,
I think
and
we will.
yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, we'll
I
promote
think
it,
we
man.
will.
We'll promote it. So, what else would you like to talk about today? You always got something up your sleeve. I know you.
Oh Lord. So let me touch on the podcast just a little bit. So what we try
Sure.
to do, what I try to do on the podcast, I pre-record 90 something percent of it. So what I do is I want to give people a chance to come on. If they want to remain anonymous, they can be anonymous. If they want their name out there, I'll put their name out there. And what I really try to do is let them, I'll hand them the mic basically. I'll introduce them, I'll let them do the talking, and I try to ask the questions that you would want to ask, hopefully.
Right.
And so, you know, and if it's somebody who is really popular and, maybe has more to say, tell me on the channel, because I read all that stuff. And what I don't read, my wife reads and tells me, hey, did you notice that, so and so was really popular, maybe you should have them back. And I'll do that. I'll turn around and I'll have them back on there. And I'm not on there to judge whether something is real or something is not. I'm there to help you tell your story. And so
Right.
it's a place for you to sit there and get something off your chest if you need to. We're there to help.
Well, you have you'll have for example, you'll have people who have guests. You have to read your guests. That's super important.
Yeah.
Some guests, just you just wind them up and they just go. And
Yep.
there's some that you have to kind of pick and move and grab. But my favorite ones, like yourself, where I can spit out a question, you answer it, and you throw one back at me. What do you think about this? Those are my favorite. Just personal thing, but it's always interesting. But you also have people on, who, like, for example, you're more the scientific area. I'm sure there's a
Mhm.
little bit of spiritual in the things that you do,
Oh,
but I would
absolutely.
say 90-95% if I were to take a ballpark guess. And then
Mhm.
there's people like my buddy Jim, who's more on the religious side of it, and no one has the right and or wrong answer. So I like to create a format in which everyone has a chance to speak and promote their ideas. And it's I think it's super important that we just like we were saying at the beginning, that we don't paint ourselves into a corner. A lot of people say, hey, if you don't take a stance on something, then they want to do that camp thing. You're in this camp or you're in that camp. The only camp I'm in is my camp. I'm in my own camp, and if you guys want to come over and hang out with me, we can grill some sausages and make some burgers. But I think it's important to be open to all aspects of it, because we really don't know, like, with any scientific divinity, whether what these phenomenon are.
Well, yeah, yeah, absolutely. And people get wrapped up in, the negative side of whenever I mention science. Science, you have to remember, is a method. It's not anything anti something. What it is, science is a method as far as investigation and looking into something. It's following critical thinking, whether it has to do with cryptids or it has to do with, the paranormal, or it has to do with UFOs or consciousness, or, anything that you want to talk about, or reality, any of that stuff. It's a method of trying to understand something. So, science gets a bad rap,
Yeah.
especially in the past 10 years. Science has got a horrible rap, whenever the COVID went around. So,
Mhm.
so
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well, with good cause, man. I mean, people were kind of off put by it. And another thing, I'm talking about science just for a second. The method. Science is not people think science is its own subcategory. To me, science is philosophy. It's a philosophical concept in which we then try to go back and reproduce the experiment in the way in which it came out for somebody else. And it's always open to being better, to get more knowledge behind it. But what happens is that it has been corrupted, and it now has become seen by many as kind of an ivory tower situation, especially like with the things that are happening in Egypt. They just took these scans supposedly, and they're seeing things under the pyramids that are like mind blowing. But if you talk to the Egyptologists, which is a science, they're like, nope, it's just this, and you can't go in and measure it, and have a nice day. So they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot.
That's because they have allowed politics and science to merge, and they never should have. We had the same problem. Science and politics have no business. They're horrible bedfellows. They don't know. Science is about gathering information, gathering evidence, gathering facts, and then trying to come up with a hypothesis or a theory, testing that hypothesis and theory and seeing if it works. If it doesn't work, that's like I talked about the idea of Dogman being a primate. I'm going where the evidence is leading me. Does that mean I'm 100% right?
Exactly.
Probably not. Probably not. But it's somewhere, it's where we're going, with what we're looking at. Could there be evidence that pops up tomorrow, actual physical evidence that pops up tomorrow, that tells me I'm completely wrong? I'm okay with that. I'm absolutely fine with that. I've got no stake in it. It's just something that we do. So it's
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a human nature. I mean, you can also take it from, say, for me, like I'm a person of God. And God is a very dirty word uh, when it comes to certain aspects of the way. Like for me, religion gets in between what I am and what I know to be, for me, what I understand God to be. So it's kind
Mhm.
of the same thing. It's like it's kind of it's filtered through some hierarchical, especially if we're talking about the Catholic Church. I'm not picking on the Catholics individually. I have, my girlfriend's Catholic, for example, and we have a lot of philosophical discussions and, Christian discussions about things. But that happens a lot too, where it's filtered through the what would you say, the ape primate human type, give me more and more and more, and fight other groups and stuff like that too. So for me, it's like, me and whatever that is. I guess people will call it spirituality. That's the word,
Mm.
I guess, is the best that best describes it.
Right.
For me, that's why I have a hard time with religion. It's like, yeah, I don't need to wear a robe, I don't need to swing things with smoke around it, I don't need a special building to go to have one with my feeling and connection with the other. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
to kind of lump those together, it seems to be the problem too. That it's basically politics. You know what I mean?
It
Interesting.
is, it is.
Interesting.
Yeah, you have to be careful. Like I said, I studied religion for a long time whenever I was younger.
Okay.
Different kinds of theology and different religions from around the world. So the biggest problem that you have with a lot of churches and their dogma is that they don't want you to be invested in God. They want you to be invested in their church. So, it
Yep.
don't let the dogma get in the way of your karma is what I try to say sometimes. That's
Yeah.
you wanna have a one-on-one relationship with whatever you want to call it. Your
Yeah.
relationship with a higher divinity is your business, and it's nobody else's
Yes.
business. Yeah.
Yes.
You
They
know,
ask me, if they ask me, what, because you'll have that, I'll talk to my girlfriend. She's, Catholic, and you'll see, in Mexico, most people are Catholic, and you'll see them drunk all the time. There's a liquor store in every corner, and people are smoking, and there's some, there's a lot of violence sometimes and things. And you go
mhm.
like, I thought you guys were Catholic. And she goes, well, that has nothing to do with the religion. I'm like, well, you know me, I'm not religious, but am I more Catholic than they are? You know what I mean?
Right.
Just without all the without all the funny hats and all the stuff. Am I being more connected with God than they are by being who I am? And she's like, yeah, I'd have to say you are. And I go, well, there it is. That's what I've been trying to tell you. And she goes, okay, I respect that. And I go, I respect you too. And that's the thing. You know what I mean? It's not tolerance. It's not, you don't tolerate, you tolerate the weather. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? You tolerate a
Right.
bad hamburger after a long night of working or something like that. It's about trying to find common ground with somebody and realizing that they are like you in a different flesh suit, and their experience to them is subjective like yours is. So you try to make their experience of you what you wish them to do to yourself, which is the golden rule. And I think if we did that, we would get so much farther in this world, man. So much farther in this world. And I've said this before here too. Like, there's places here I've gone to. Certain, they call them barrios. Barrios is uh, like a certain section of the city. What do they call that in America? Suburb, like a little
Yeah.
suburb of the city. And there's places here who have never seen a white guy before. And I'll go in there and I'll go to the store, and you'll see that it'll be a mom and pop store, and they got 3 or 4 kids, and one's over there stocking the shelves, and they got their kitchen in the back that's connected to their house. And I'll go in there and say, hey, hello, hi. And they'll look at me and they'll be afraid. And I'll go, what's your name? Everything in Spanish. And then I'll leave out of there. My girlfriend, that's really sweet. I was like, I'm basically being the ambassador for my country at the moment. I'm being the ambassador for someone they've never met before, so that their first experience is not a negative experience. That they go,
Right.
this is because I'm tall compared to I'm huge, with blue eyes and like a big praying mantis coming in. It scares the hell out of them. And I get down low, and I go, hey, it's if we were to do that with everybody and see like someone's cat, grab their cat and take it to them. Hey, I seen your cat on the road. And if everyone did that for everyone, the world changes. It's just like that. But people don't want to. They're only self-motivated by their own ego, which drives me up a wall. I'm sorry, Robert, I'm over here ranting.
No, you're saying you went on the rant that I would have gone on, so I just went along with you.
Okay.
So
Okay. Oh, mantis aliens. They're over here having a discussion about mantis aliens on the side. Shade Vikings here. Hi, Shade Viking. Justin's here. Everyone's over here killing matches here. What is this? Under Fire 97. All the usual suspects are here tonight. All right, man. Shit. All right. Robert, the floor is yours again. I'm sorry I keep interrupting you.
you're You're all right, Tom. You're all right. So a lot of the stuff on our channel is generally has to do with cryptids. So we look at things like Bigfoot. There's a whole lot of Dogman stuff on there. So if you like Dogman and you like Dogman eyewitnesses or people who, study or research that, we definitely got a lot of that going on. It seems to be the hot topic, in the past 5-6 years, and it's probably going to continue. But we do a lot of the, the Sasquatch and all the other stuff. I'd like to get some more of the paranormal stuff going on. Definitely more of the UFO and, stuff like that. So if anybody out there listening and you're eyewitness, if you're an eyewitness to and or study or investigator or researcher into any of those, and you want to hop on a podcast and you want to talk, I'm there. So just
by all
drop
means,
me a
Robert, you can go through my catalog. I mean, there's a ton of people who want to get their story out there. I can't think of his name right now, but he uses a pseudonym. He uses a Spanish pseudonym. I can't think of his name right now. There he is. I was going to ask you how to get contacted. Just go ahead and write them up. Drop my name. Say, hey, Tom sent me you, and said, you would be probably willing to come on the show. Would you like to do that? And I can't think of his name right now. He uses two different pseudonyms. There's the one he uses, and then there's the one on his name over here that he comes in sometimes. If you guys can know what I'm talking about. And he's a former military guy, and he's just like, I've seen this thing, and I don't know what the hell it was. And he,
Right.
What I mean? And people can come on anonymous, I'd imagine, too, or like write you and say, hey, what do you think about this? And I think you would be very responsive to that as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I've told people before, if you feel like you don't want to come on the show and maybe you want your eyewitness story told, if you really want it done that way, I can work up a whole video on the story being told, and I'll let you take a look at it. You tell me if that's okay with you, and then I'll put it on YouTube. If that's what you want. If you don't want to get on there and you don't want your voice on there or whatever, and you want it done in AI, or you want me to, read your story, I'll do whatever you want, as far as that goes.
Yeah, because there's still an astigmatism around this, or it's not astigmatism, that's an I thing. Stigmatism. There's still a stigmatism around it, especially, I would imagine, in the part of the country where you're from, because, it's, very religious based still, and there's a very strong family, and there's a very, the head of the family, and you got to go out and hard work. So to say, you've seen something like this, it's kind of hard. So, it's the same for me. If you guys want to come on anonymously, or where we just hear your voice and we you can block out your screen, we can do that as well. If you want to send it to me or Robert or whoever it is, there's plenty of good podcasters, Magical or Magical Journey podcast or the Fisher of Spams podcast. You guys can go ahead and do that as well. And if you want to tell us, we are here. For me, I would say honestly, we're here to provide a space in which those things can be spoken, because you're not crazy. It's more, I would have to say, especially when it comes to paranormal and even to a certain extent UFO, it's more common than you would actually think, especially the paranormal. Especially.
Yeah.
It's weird, man.
Oh yeah, I've experienced paranormal things my entire life. I've had stuff with the Hat Man. I've had, stuff with,
I remember that.
Yeah.
Go back and check out that episode, guys. Yeah.
Yeah. I've had, stuff with other spirits. I'm a pretty spiritual type person. So, I mean, whenever I go out into the woods, I'm one of those people who talks to the woods when I go out there. I'm like, this is why I'm here. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I want to do. And I'm not here to hurt anybody or hurt anything. So, I try to be
man,
really.
Thank you so much, Shade Viking. Thank you so much for helping me out, man. I really, really appreciate that. Here's a story, guys, I haven't even told. I was this will happen to me 2 days ago, Robert. I
Cool.
was at my boss's workshop. They went down to the peninsula today or yesterday, and he was like, "Do you want to go?" And I'm like, "No, I have a podcast with my buddy Robert. I'm not going." Plus, it's a wild place. This is a place where I had like a little bit of lost time. I feel everything went bad, but that's kind of But this happened to me, so I'm welding at the same place I seen the smoke riser from the floor in the corner. I'm welding, and I'm sitting at this one point. I got my. I wasn't welding at this particular time. I was using a wire brush, cleaning off an old gate, getting ready to be repainted.
Hmm.
So I'm sitting there, and I swear, something. It felt like something grabbed. I had a short sleeve shirt. Something grabbed my sleeve, and I looked down. There's like my keys are hanging down by the side. I'm sitting on a chair, like as I'm doing this, and I stopped for a second, and I recognized it because here's a question I guess I have. Since you've been doing the podcast, because this is something that's been happening to me, has there been an uptick in your paranormal experiences?
That's a good question. I don't know if I would call it an uptick. I don't know, because I'm fairly aware of things that go on around me. I've always been that way. I wouldn't say that I've had an uptick as far as that goes, but apparently you have. So
Okay,
I mean,
because I was speaking. Yeah, I've been speaking. I spoke with. I'm going to have Tommy Cullum on. I hope live, but he's in England and he has a different work schedule. But you will see a show come out where he's saying the same thing is happening to him. Where like ever since I started the show, I'll see shadow creatures, whatever that is, in the corner once in a while, and that'll be or the three knocks on the door. I hear that once in a while, and I'll go because I know that's a bad thing. And I go, no, you have to leave. But I think it felt because I can't think of anything else it would have been. It felt like something just tugged on my shirt while I'm in the middle of. It always seems to mention that it happens, and we need to pay more attention to it. It's just my little thing at the moment.
no, I'm with you. I'm with you. People do need to be more aware of stuff like that. I will say I've had some more crazy dreams lately than I've had in the past, few years or whatever. So yeah, very very unsettling, I would say.
Like we're
So
we're getting older too, though. We're getting older. It's probably just the pineal gland firing out some dimethyltryptamine. Getting you. I always thought about that. Sleep is just like practice for death, but it's more of a comedic concept. It's like one day I'm going to be an expert at this.
yeah.
Yeah, man. Robert, thank you so much for coming on today, my friend. It's always a pleasure. I always love your every time I get to talking to you, it's always it's you always surprise me like with the baboon thing. That was great. Uh Please do me a favor, tell everyone about your book one more time, tell us where we can find you, and tell them where they can like and subscribe to your channel so that you get the motivation, which you don't need anymore, but that little bit extra helps so they can see more of what you're doing.
Absolutely. So if you go to Amazon, you can find my book there. It's Monstrous, Monstrous Arkansas, Monstrous Field Guide. Anyway, put Monstrous Field Guide in there, Monstrous Arkansas. You'll find it on there. And I think it runs paperback. I think is like $15, and I think you can pay a little bit more and you get the hardcover one. If you're one of those people that just absolutely loves books like me, you're like, well, it's not a real book unless it's hardcover. So I've got both. If you are interested in this kind of stuff and you
There it
want to
is.
join us, yeah, there it is with the real name of it, Monstrous Arkansas: Field Guide to the Unknown and Mysterious Beings in the Natural State. So yeah, that's a big old mouthful, isn't it? So anyway, then if you're interested,
It's quite a subtitle.
that's why it's a field guide. All right. So
Yes, sir.
if
There
you're
he is.
interested in that
There he
kind of
is.
stuff,
I'm sorry, the gentleman that I was just speaking about. I think it's I like. Please, if you want to go into a good show, my friend, talk to Robert. Write him. Where was his email at? Pam, could you grab his email for me? I'm trying to get you in contact with him. I think his name was Pablo, or I can't think what he calls himself, but this is the gentleman I was talking to you about. Is I Like Ike is his name. I think this is the gentleman I'm talking about. He was on my show, and he's had a Bigfoot experience as well as what he thinks is a. Thank you, Pam. Thank you very much, sweetheart. There it is. Write him. Do me a favor, Pancho. That's his name. Pancho, not Pancho Villa, but Pancho. That's what his pseudonym is. Yeah. Pancho, do me a favor and write Robert if you'd like to come on the show. Robert's an excellent host, and he would be very good at getting your information out. I'm sorry, Robert. It was perfect timing, and I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're okay, Tom. You're all right. Yeah, you got to strike while the iron's hot sometimes. But
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Keep chopping wood. That's what we're doing.
So if you like that kind of stuff, as far as talking about, what we're talking about on here, and you're on Facebook, join us on the Facebook group, Monstrous, the podcast, or Monstrous Facebook group. I've got both of them. I've got Monstrous, the podcast, which is a link for the show that's over on Facebook, or you can join the Facebook group. And we start off as Monstrous Arkansas, and then we expanded past that. Look for us on YouTube. Look for us on Rumble. Remember, on Rumble, I got to update everything, so everything's up to date on YouTube. We are on Spotify. There is a little bit on Spotify. I'm way behind on Spotify. You can find us on TikTok. You can find some stuff on the Instagram. We're all over the place. And so if you want to reach out to us. Love to have you on the show. If you just want to watch the show, join up. We are doing memberships, and we'd love to have you subscribe. We're trying to get monetized too, and if you get us monetized, help us to get monetized so that we can put out more great stuff that, for you to listen to and to watch.
How far are you away from being monetized?
We are almost right at 800 subscribers. So at 1,000.
Okay, not that far.
No, not far at all.
No, maybe 2-3 months. It's making a month, guys. Let's go ahead and get them out there, guys. Let's get Robert up there, and then whenever you get sub, dude, make sure when you get that down, make sure you let me know so we can put it on our channel too.
Oh, absolutely.
We celebrate everyone together. The same, dude. Robert, thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate it. Thank you for accepting an invitation, and it's always an open door for you to come back and talk about whatever. We can talk about making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I couldn't care less, man. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Absolutely, Tom. I enjoyed it every single time we talk, brother. You take care.
Yes. I will. Just hold on 1 second. I'm going to do it right from here. I like to do it. This is the way I used to bump people up, but this is better. So you guys will listen to the channel. If you enjoyed it, please do me a favor, like and subscribe. Please follow me on Rumble, and please follow me on Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. If you want to get yourself a T-shirt, all that's over there. I got some new stuff that came out. I've been really hitting it hard. Trying to get away from this physical labor and get into what I'm good at is speaking. I'm not very good at writing. Maybe Robert can help me out so I can write my own book one day. Be more of a memoir of a crazy man or something of that nature. But I appreciate it nonetheless. And one more time, Robert, thank you so very much for coming on the show. And remember, guys, we are the guy. We are aware. Love you all.